Hi, this is Adam, and in this video we're going to look at the unhealthy character traits and coping skills you and me, have learned as the children of narcissistic parents. Of course, it's important to shine a spotlight on the narcissistic parent at all times and what they've done to us. But it's just as, if not more, important to shine some internal light on ourselves as well, to find out the bad traits that you and I have adopted that aren't even really us. As the golden child of a narcissist mother, you and I have inherited many of her bad traits and poor coping mechanisms, and that sucks. It sucks because it makes it hard for us to have authentic relationships with others and to connect with others, especially with normal, healthy people we should be connecting with. Instead, we end up connecting with other doormats like ourselves and psychopathic characters. And we do this because these are the types of people we're used to. These are the types of people we identify with in a sick, learned way. But you and I can learn to break this cycle. The internet helps this cause tremendously. I always thank God for the internet. Personally, I've had to rid myself of around 90% of the people in my life because they all fit into the categories I just mentioned. I need to work on myself, and you need to work on yourself. And then, once we've made significant progress on ourselves towards becoming an assertive and powerful self, and we're able to recognize the psychopathic and narcissistic personalities in our lives, then we can begin to make real friends. So how did we learn these poor skills? Well, I can only speak for myself, of course, but I'm sure the story will be similar to yours. Like most people, my mother was a significant role model for me growing up. Since she lived apart from my stepfather, however, until I was around 13, she was also my main role model. And like some of you, unfortunately, she was a role model who was sick, unhealthy, who parentified and enmeshed me. I often doubt she consciously did these things, although I could be wrong, but the sick cycle was in effect nonetheless, and it doesn't excuse what happened to me, and it doesn't excuse what happened to you. So I learned, and I'm sure you learned, to cope with life and treat people in a very specific way. I learned how to get what I want and how to be happy, how to be in relationships, and everything else you learn growing up outside of formal schooling, that is, from the narcissistic mother. She didn't actually teach me anything, though. She did everything for me, and I was left to try and emulate her as much as possible. This is my version of the golden child. That's how I grew up. So what did I learn? This is where our similarities come back together. That's you and me. Basically, we learn that in order to be happy and to get what we want in life, we have to be manipulative. And so we become manipulative without even meaning to. And honestly, because we have a conscience and empathy for others, it always makes us feel a bit guilty when we're manipulative, but we don't know another way. And of course, we always assume there's something wrong with us as a result of this conflict. All the other doormats and psychopaths I knew expected or used the same manipulative techniques. And since these were all the people I knew, I assumed it was normal, and so I was always anxious and always thinking I was somehow flawed for being empathetic and caring and hating life for that reason. Let me repeat that. I thought I was flawed for being empathetic and caring. That's not normal. You know it, and I know it. And so, for me, this was just how life worked. You either became a manipulative prick, or, well, there was not really much of an or, since that's all we learn, right? We just do those things. It never leads to happiness or anywhere good. It leads to misery and shitty relationships. Like you, I become a hurt child or a critical parent, flip-flopping between the two and attracting others with the same personas, never knowing who I am and always trying to manipulate my way into happiness. A girl I dated in college called me out on it once. I'd been way too needy, and she understandably wanted to break up with me. I took her out to dinner and told her just so many sweet and perfect things. You really would have given me an Academy Award for my performance. And I didn't even know I was acting. That's probably why it was so good. I just knew I had to tell her nice shit so she would hang around. And I didn't even understand my motivations at all then. I just knew I had to do it. She cried and told me I always knew the right things to say, and that's why she couldn't be with me. I was so confused. I was floored. I was speechless. If I said all the right things, I thought, then how come she didn't want to be with me? Only much later did I realize that connecting with people and having a happy, real life is about being an authentic person, not about saying the right things that you probably don't even mean. But I didn't know that then, and so I'm left having to forgive myself for being that person at that time and many other times. But her words always stuck with me because deep down I knew she was right, and I hated what I had become. Being manipulative works for my mother because I don't think she has empathy for others, although consciously she enjoys power and control games, many examples of which I won't get into in this video. As an empathetic person who expects the same from others, this is hard for me to understand, and so I've always tried to assume she's like me, and she certainly pretends, but something always seemed off. To me, but especially to other people I'm around, especially my relationships, when these people get to know her, they tell me that something's off, and then I learn. So I'm going to be honest with you. I also enjoy power and control, and I think most other people do too, if they're being honest. I'm not proud of that. I think it's an unhealthy compulsion, frankly. When I engage in power and control activities, I end up feeling frustrated and confused, angry and hostile. I feel a tremendous amount of anxiety, and I take out my frustrations, anger, sadness, feelings of inadequacy on others, which just leads to more misery. So I'm finally starting to recognize when I'm doing something for the sake of those demons, but change is hard. I keep reminding myself I want to be open and honest with people and really get to know them. I don't want to live a superficial life full of anger and rage and getting my kicks off of other people's misery. That's not good enough for me, and it's not good enough for you either. We have empathy for others, you and me, And all that manipulative shit we learned growing up conflicts with our natural empathy and innocence and desire to connect authentically with others. The narcissist chooses to be who they are. This is also hard for me to accept. It's also true. I have, for example, one narcissistic cousin who says he has zero boundaries. He says it confidently and with authority and apparent satisfaction. I can only assume he learned it as a child and came to accept his role that he now relishes. My mother also is who she is and has no interest in therapy. She herself says she would just trick the therapist. Those are her words. We could go down the narcissistic path ourselves, too. We really could. It's easier. I was going down that path when I was younger. It's easier that way. Or rather than easier, I would say it's based on inertia. It's what comes naturally to the narcissist, and it comes naturally to the children of narcissists because it's all we know. But the difference, again, is that we have empathy and it conflicts with who we are and we feel bad doing it, and the narcissist enjoys doing it. They get a pleasure out of it. They get a kick out of it. No conflict. But I've been in such conflict with myself for a long time because it's not who I am, but it's all I know. So we can go down that path, the path to narcissism, I suppose, but because it's the path of everything we've learned. And yet it conflicts with our essential goodness, innocence, and empathy, which we have in spades. And that empathy is stronger than the disordered impulses of narcissism, which are not even our own. So I'm in a transition period right now. I can choose to go my own separate way, the way of freedom. There's a lot of uncertainty there, but ultimately becoming who I was meant to be. Away from my parents, away from the narcissist, and on a path to self-discovery. Or I can choose the easy path of least resistance and become the narcissist myself. But I've always rejected that, as I've said, and had immense conflict about it. So it's obviously not for me. I have to choose one of these paths, however, or I'll just be in a constant state of uncertainty, which is what I've been in for a very long time. Now that I know I have this choice, the choice is actually quite simple. I can only choose freedom. I can't remain where I am, and the narcissism doesn't work for me, so I have to choose freedom. In the great movie The Matrix, Trinity says to Neo, "You've been down that road before, Neo. You know where it ends." Indeed he does, and so do we. We've been down that path. So let's choose health and happiness today, shall we? Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please click the like button and leave me some comments. Feel free to share it with your friends who may also have narcissistic parents. I'm also always interested to hear from others who are suffering from the narcissistic parents and who are, like me, striving to be free. I hope you have a wonderful and healthy rest of your day.